in South Louisiana. Anyone who's got allergies, take this.
NAD is probably the biggest thing coming out right now on anti-aging. Normally, like when we're tight in here and you start getting that pressure and you're taking those joints and muscles through full range, this one feels almost addicting. So consistency over intensity. And then we're just going to roll up and down. It seems crazy, but when you go get massages and they're finding tightness in here, the first thing you need to do is start releasing this stuff. Kelly, thank you. You did the exercises last week and it helped a lot.
Good day, my friends. Welcome to Tea with Dr. D. I am excited to be back. It's been a while. For those of you who are new here, this was a very fun thing that we started doing back in 2020, way back when. I would love to hear from you if you were among the first episodes or if you caught an episode of Tea with Dr. D. Please say hi, drop me a line. But this is basically a place where I can answer questions. We can go through long form discussions around anything. If we have any kind of little tips or tricks, this is a great place for us to do it. And if you're listening to this on the playback, most likely, welcome to another episode of the Pain and Performance Podcast. But today it is Tea with Dr. D, and I am drinking some Noon Brew Superfood Matcha. So this has been something I've been adding in the afternoons just to kind of give you that little like warmth after lunch and help with digestion. On one of my social channels, I was talking about sleep and how improving your sleep can dramatically improve your overall health. And someone asked the question, like, why are you drinking coffee if you're getting such good sleep? Most of the time, I'm probably not. Most of the time, it is some version of tea. And if it is coffee, it often will have many other good things. I use my last cup of coffee in the morning as like this delivery system to get all kind of good stuff in, whether that's collagen, mushroom extract. Sometimes we'll put some vitamins in there and some good stuff. So very good to add in. I think just because you get good sleep doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy the ritual of drinking coffee. But alas, if y'all do have any questions, I would love to hear them. Let me know. We'll dive into whatever y'all want, whatever you got. I will answer. I know we have a few questions that we're going to jump on with, and we'll kick that off. So I think the first question that we have came through on one of our social channels. Let's go ahead and get that pulled up. So I believe Tommy asked, so I have Crohn's disease. I'm currently injecting BPC 157. For those of y'all that don't know, BPC 157 is a peptide, a regenerative peptide that can be used in a number of different ways, but we'll save that for another time. Will the injections do the same job as an oral? Or is it better to use oral for Crohn's disease? So for those of you listening to this, so Crohn's disease is an inflammatory bowel condition. Basically, it's this chronic inflammatory condition that affects the entire GI tract. Whenever we're looking at some of that, it can really be categorized as these like flare-ups and remissions where we go in and out of inflammatory processes. A lot of times we have patients who will deal with abdominal pain, diarrhea, fatigue, malnutrition issues, and we really do want to keep inflammation under control. The interesting thing about Crohn's is a lot of the stuff that they would tell you to keep good gut health tends to irritate Crohn's in some situations. So a lot of you have probably heard, like, if you eat high fiber, that's going to be great for your, GI tract. When you look at Crohn's, if you increase or you're consuming a lot of fiber, it tends to kind of flare things up and irritate things. One of the things that has been shown to keep the inflammation under control is this peptide BPC 157. When you're taking that, the peptide just needs to increase the amount over the stomach and through the system. The real answer is going to be that whichever one you can tolerate the most is going to give you the benefits that you need to keep inflammation down and improve the actual healing of the gut. Now, there's some other things that you would most likely want to do if you're trying to improve your Crohn's symptoms. If you're injecting it and that's going okay for you, continue injecting it. It's getting into the bloodstream, it's circling through. Anecdotally, I'll tell you that we've had more people who felt GI symptoms improve whenever they were doing the oral form of BPC 157. I do tend to agree with that. It's going through, maybe that's just our logical brain that I'm taking it in the mouth and it's going down into the stomach and I'm getting these improvements in gut health and inflammation. But the research says we're getting the same thing one way or another. When we're looking at the other little parameters that would change or improve something like Crohn's disease on top of BPC 157, one thing is that if we can break up and start to reduce the size of our meals, that we get after we eat, we get this postprandial inflammatory response that is like the inflammation throughout our digestive tract, 30 to 90 minutes after we eat. The bigger the meal, the bigger the inflammatory response that we get, and we want to blunt that. The size of the meal correlates with the size of the inflammatory response. So smaller meals is going to cause a smaller inflammatory response. Another amazing thing that you can see change that postprandial inflammatory response is omega-3s. If we reduce, or if we take about a gram of omega-3 before we eat, like 30 minutes before we eat, what you'll see is that you actually get a significantly less inflammatory response from the foods that you're eating. So we always want people to increase omega-3s. There's a bunch of data around improving omega-3s or consuming omega-3s to improve a bunch of areas of health. Inflammation is a big one. But increasing your omega-3s before you eat is a great way to reduce the inflammation that comes from those meals, that little postprandial inflammatory response. Another major thing that I'd add on top of this, if we're looking at Crohn's, is that some of the research from Justin Sonnenberg's lab, he's a Stanford researcher. So they did a study where they were comparing a high fiber diet to a high fermented food diet. He actually has kind of a funny anecdote. He didn't want to add the fermented foods in. He was like, this is going to do nothing. So why are we even studying this? But the results were crazy. After 10 weeks, the fermented food group dramatically beat the high fiber group by a crazy amount. Significant reduction in gut inflammation, significantly improved the diversity of the gut microbiome. So very, very good research that tells us even if we can't go the high fiber route, going the fermented foods route can be a very, very good thing to help us improve inflammation, gut health, gut microbiome health. And in these cases, if we're trying to improve gut health, but we can't really increase fiber without irritating things, fermented foods can be a really great way to start to improve the inflammation and the health through that. So those would be where I would start. My simple take on some of this stuff would be continue injecting. If that starts to get old, go for the oral BPC 157 for about another 2-month block and then take a month off. I would increase your consumption of fermented foods, kind of a low fiber, minimal alcohol. Make sure you're not irritating the digestive tract. And then I would also consider getting high intensity laser therapy, targeting the lower segments of the GI tract. And we'll see high intensity laser. We can go through that if anybody's got questions, but high intensity laser penetrates like 5 inches into the body, increases ATP production in mitochondria, helps your body clear out inflammation and stimulate healing. So we like to pair BPC 157 or a healing regenerative peptide with high intensity laser so that we give your body the building tools to repair and reduce inflammation. And then we come behind and give it the stimulus and the energy so it can carry out that work. So that's kind of how those two work really, really well together. So hopefully that makes some sense. Good luck. If you have any questions, Tommy, reach out. We've seen a lot of people really dramatically improve Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, quite a few of these, and keep the inflammation at bay and really improve the quality of their life dramatically. So hope that helps. Let me know if you need more information about any of that stuff. So awesome. Let's jump to another question. Tam, welcome to Tea with Dr. D. So my joints hurt. My joints don't hurt, rather. Okay. But all of them pop really loudly. I exercise and eat well. What can I do to fix this? I feel like this is one of those questions that every practitioner gets. It's like, my joints are popping. Is that good or bad? Is there a problem with that? I'll tell you how I think about this. I think about joint popping or joint noise in two areas. There is something called a physiological noise and a pathological noise. So physiological noises are your kind of regular joint popping. That is your joints making the typical normal noises that they would usually make, and you'd see this in a very healthy person. Physiological noises are whenever the gas in the joint kind of bursts. This is like you popping your knuckle, right? You open the space in your joint, it changes the pressure. CO2 comes out of a liquid into a gas, and the bubble bursts, and you hear the pop. That is a physiological noise that has been studied to death. It is fine. There is no problems with it. It's not going to cause problems or arthritis, despite what your mother may have told you. Ligament snapping, like if you're moving, I can get my wrist to do it every time. That's ligaments and joints kind of moving across each other, and we'll get some joint noise with some of that stuff. Also hypermobility, people who have hypermobility. All of our staff members that come on do a talent for the team. And yesterday we had one of the more interesting talents where we had Spencer clapping with one hand. At some point, we may have to put a video up of this. Sorry, Spencer, you're called out, buddy. But it was basically just moving the hand really fast so that he makes some noise with it. That would fall under the physiological joint noise. All of those are okay, and I would just tell you, like, you can pretty much ignore it if you're having any worry about that being a problem. Now we have the flip side of joint noise or popping, which is the pathological side of things. Pathological side of joint popping often will come from degenerative changes. This can be like osteophytes, like take the knee. For example, we can have like little bone spurs around that. We'll hear this in the neck sometimes. This can be cartilage area where the cartilage is rubbing, causing inflammation. This could be a meniscus popping in the knee, quite painful though. You can have what we would consider a pathological plica band. This is an area in the knee joint capsule that has kind of tightened up and thickened and isn't moving real well, and will cause some popping. And you'll get joints that move more than they're supposed to. We'll see this with shoulders, the joint sliding in and out of its kind of natural joint socket, and that'll cause popping. All of those fall in the pathological side. When we're looking at pathological joint popping, we do want to address that. That can lead towards a inflammatory condition, that can lead towards an arthritic condition, and it can certainly cause pain. A lot of times if you're getting joint popping and it falls in that pathological side, we want to start to offload the area that is popping. We want to start to correct the balance across that. So what I would most likely do for about 6 weeks is I would start rolling out and stretching all the tissues around the joints that you're popping. If it's your shoulder, I'm going to do all the front, I'm going to do all the top, I'm going to do all the back, I'm going to do everything underneath. If I'm getting popping in my wrist, then I would do all the tissues in the front. I would roll this out and stretch it. I would stretch everything across the forearm and loosen everything around that for about 6 weeks. I would also add in a good collagen supplement. And one that has hyaluronic acid. So I would make sure I'm taking those together. And I'd probably take like a glucosamine and chondroitin supplement, something that really helps increase the water intake in those tissues. And it'll hold and start to increase the space between the joints, and will actually get a more hydrated joint structure. After about 6 weeks, I would start to work on stability exercises. So wherever your body part that pops the most, Tam, I would go ahead and start looking up what are stability exercises for this. For the shoulder, that's getting on all fours, that's doing clocks and ABCs, that's doing some of these like internal, external exercises. So you'll find a lot of stability exercises out there depending on where this is at. If it's all around, there's no pain, there's no inflammation from it, we would consider that physiological noise. If it's bothering you that much, I had a patient come in one time who said that he stood up to shoot a deer and his knees popped so loudly that it scared the deer. He was like, I'm not having any pain there, but this is messing with my deer hunt and I need to get it fixed. And so we did this same protocol. We did collagen, hyaluronic acid, glucosamine, and chondroitin, and started loosening it up. About 6 weeks. That's about how long it takes tissue to start changing. He started really moving a lot better. And then we started doing knee stability exercises for another probably 6 to 12 weeks. About 3 months will be what you'd be expecting to see. And then he was having way less joint noise. I'm not going to say it completely went away because physiological joint noise is normal, but you can minimize it. And his was quite loud. This is personal opinion. This is not pulling anything from data. I think that if it starts to get very consistent and it's something that we repeat a lot, then I think a lot of times what we would be looking at is something that could progress into a pathological condition. If you have completely healthy joints, you'll get some popping and stuff, but that we want to at least take note of that. And if it's somewhere that we've had an injury or we've had some sort of pain in the past, then I think we could have like an asymptomatic pathological thing. And we still want to go through and do that protocol of get that joint healthier. So make sure you're getting, everything in there, collagen, hyaluronic acid, you're getting glucosamine, chondroitin, loosen everything around it, and then go through a stability program. So really, really good. I see this with knees the most, just to kind of put that on there. So Tam, I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some good information, and let me know if you have any questions. If you know which joint, throw that at us and we can give you a little more direction on what type of kind of mobility and stability exercises you can do. So awesome. Let's see what else we got. I want to give a shout out to Al on the back end of this, who's running the show for the first time. Al, you're doing a fantastic job, buddy. I think he was a little nervous leading into this. There was a lot of questions. So everybody tell Al he's doing such a great job. All right, Sarah, let's see. I'm confused about stretching. So are all the experts, Sarah. We get a lot of questions, and if you search stretching right now, you're going to find every different answer you can. It's good, it's bad. You need to do it. You don't need to do it. Forget about it. And that's basically what you heard. Apparently, I've heard stretch more. I don't need to stretch at all, and everything in between. What's the real answer? We did a very long and very deep podcast on stretching. And some of you may have heard that. And I know we went into a lot of the science around it. And I think I got a lot of questions from people saying like, okay, I understand the science of what it can and can't do. I'm still trying to figure out practically, what does that do for me today? What do I do right now to improve my health, my life? How do I think about stretching? And preparing for that podcast, I remember pulling research. And if we look at the research around stretching, you can pull a number of studies. So where we look at stretching exercises for the spine, where we look at static versus dynamic stretching. So static is what you're thinking about when you're stretching, just holding a stretch. A dynamic stretch would be where you're going through a full range of motion, but you're still getting into those in ranges of motion for stretching. We looked at stretching and lymphatic drainage, soft tissue mobility. So does it actually change the length of the tissue? Stretching in arthritis patients, stretching for neck pain, stretching for low back pain, and everything in between. And here's what I will tell you, that if you study that, what the research says is, if you accumulate more time stretching your body to what feels like a tight end point, and you come off of it, whether you hold that for 10 seconds or for 60 seconds or 2 minutes, we can get into the nuances of this, but the more time that you take your body into that, it tends to look like the better you feel and the better your body moves. So whenever we look at that, my answer to people is that you probably do need to do more. You need to get your body into some of these positions that is normal physiological range of motion. So I'm stretching my shoulder, I'm stretching my neck out, and I'm getting to that point where it feels tight at the end, and I'm holding that for 30 to 90 seconds, and I'm accumulating somewhere in the range of 5 minutes a week of that for that specific joint. What I like to do with this is I spend a few minutes at the end of my gym session stretching, and I just go from the 6 days a week that I'm in the gym, that I'm working out. I just go through each area of the body, and I make sure that in a week's time I've done something to stretch that area out. If we look at the research around this, if you are spending more time stretching, by and large, your body's going to move healthier. You're going to have less compression across your joints, and you're going to have less pain. That's enough for me. A lot of the research gets into the nuances of how long should we stretch across different populations. Does it actually change the length of the tissues? And all of that is highly debatable, but all that does is kind of, I think, get people confused and get them in the weeds into, well, I don't know if this is good or bad. Here's the answer. Stretching is good. And if you accumulate more of it, you have less pain and you move better. So how do you accumulate more is the thing that you get to choose. Are you going to do dynamic stretching where you take your joints through a full range of motion? Does that feel good to you at the end? Or are you going to hold on to some of those things? Are you going to hold stretches at the end? Before you move or before you exercise, I would not recommend holding. Simple. Do dynamic stretching before you go into an exercise. Make sure you're moving. We are preparing our body to move, not be static. So teach your body how to move better. Take it through some of these motions. And if you have specific areas that consistently stay tight, make sure you're hitting that at least 5 minutes a week. So you're accumulating that stretch 5 minutes a week, and we're doing that repeatedly over time. If it's a significantly tight or painful issue, then you probably want to do a bit more than 5 minutes a week. We probably want to double that if it's symptomatic, if it's painful. But I know stretching, if you start studying it, it can be confusing. All of the research that I have seen points to the fact that people who accumulate more time stretching feel better. People who stretch more move better and have less risk of injuries. That is the 30,000 foot view on stretching. So, Sarah, I hope that helps. I hope that makes some sense, and you can use that in your life tomorrow. Get moving, loosen up, spend 5 minutes stretching, start at the neck, go to the shoulders the next day, go to the low back, then do the hips, then do the knees, then do the feet and ankles, start back over, and just work through the body every week. Try and give a little stretch on each part of the body. So I hope that helps. I hope that clears that up sufficiently. Let's see. So RK3, I think I know who you are. But is blood flow modification training something that a regular person can do at home without specialized training? So for those of you who don't know what blood flow modification training is, so we use a form of blood flow modification training in our office called KAATSU. That is these very specialized, almost looks like a blood pressure cuff that slowly restricts the blood flow to your muscles while you're using them. That does some interesting things. It makes your muscles think they are working too hard because they're running out of oxygen. what that causes is a 300% increase in growth hormone production. Very, very powerful technology. Love blood flow modification training. It was initially used by Olympians, at least in the US, because what they found was that they could exercise and get this growth hormone stimulus without stressing or causing inflammation in their body. So they could do like 2 or 3 a day exercise routines, so that they could recover faster without the inflammation, but they're still getting all the growth hormone. They're still getting all the strength development in there. This can be a very, very good thing if we're injured and we're trying to overcome an injury. We can actually get very good improvements in growth hormone and get that muscle to start growing and come back much, much faster by using blood flow modification. At home, you absolutely can use something like KAATSU. KAATSU makes a band that is meant to travel. I travel with mine. Many of you who follow me have seen that I've talked about this. I start bringing them with me because I can get a really good strength workout while I'm traveling, even if like the hotel I'm at has a terrible gym. Like just putting these bands on can really stimulate quite a bit of growth hormone, even if you're just going about regular activities. If y'all are looking for more information about this, we had a really good podcast episode with Stephen Muñatones on the Pain and Performance podcast. If you search Stephen Muñatones, Muñatones, he will pop up. He was on episode, what was that? That would have been episode 79 of the Pain and Performance podcast. Very good. We get into a lot of the research around blood flow modification. And he goes through some really good protocols in there. So basically at home, what you would want to do is probably in a day, your first time, like 3 to 5 rounds of blood flow modification. And I'd probably shoot to do that easily 3 times a week. Something like that. So 3 to 5 rounds per workout session, 3 to 5 times a week, starting with the low pressure. This will make sense if you see one of those units. You're starting with a lower pressure. And in the exercise, what you're doing, let's take bicep curls, for example. You're going to put the cuff on, low pressure, and we're going to do 3 to 5 rounds, and we're doing about 20 repetitions of those curls. And at the end of that, we should get to the point where it's quite hard because we are restricting that blood flow. So it should almost feel like we're getting a really big muscle pump. No matter what, in your first few sessions, like you don't change the intensity of it. We learned really quickly. We've been working with KAATSU since 2015. So almost a decade we've been using blood flow modification training. That's wild. But the first few sessions go easier than you think. You should finish and be like, oh, that was too easy. Because if you feel it those first few times, you are going to notice very quickly the next day, like, oh my gosh, I am incredibly sore. So for the first week, low pressure, 3 to 5 sessions, 3 to 5 rounds per session, roughly reps of 20 when you're doing those. If you do that and you're not getting a lot of soreness, go to week 2, you increase the pressure, you stay at 3 to 5 rounds, 3 to 5 sets per round per day, basically. And you're just doing basic movements. You don't need to get fancy with blood flow modification training. It works really well. I love to do it. It does a really good job of boosting growth hormone. When we look at the study around aging populations, it is incredible for producing and maintaining muscle mass in aging populations. They did a study over 80, and what they found was increases in stability, decreases in falls. And all they did was have this group of people over 80 put the cuffs on and just go about doing their regular house activity. So they didn't even make them exercise. They were like, just put the bands on and go, do whatever you normally do in your house, do the dishes, cook, as long as you were moving. So blood flow modification can be incredible. For athletes, it's really powerful because you get that growth hormone, but you're not getting the tissue stress. So that's one of the reasons that I really do like using blood flow modification. Like we'll use it in our pitchers, our athletes. They'll come in after a game. We'll have them run through cryotherapy. Then they'll do a lymphatic drainage. And then after, we'll do a quick KAATSU session where they're not stressing any tissues. They're just boosting growth hormone. So their arm feels really, really good and they're ready to go. They were recovered and they have reduced their risk for injury because that tissue has got that growth hormone to go back in and kind of recover and repair while we don't have any inflammation. So yes, absolutely. KAATSU does a fantastic job of guiding people. And if you reach out to us, I believe we have through the Pain and Performance podcast, we have like a 10% off. I want to say it's Pain 10, like PAIN, and then 10 will get you 10% off of any KAATSU unit. I'll get the team to double check. We'll leave a comment on this and we'll make sure that we know what the actual discount code is, since I'm pulling that off the top of my head. Awesome. Let's see what else we got. Any other comments? I think that's all the time we have today. Y'all can shoot us a text if you're listening to this, if you're rewatching this. 801-691-7582 is our text platform. I answer those. Those go straight to me, and it's actually coming an answer from me. It's just easier for me to do that than to do it through like, regular numbers or anything like that. So that is me. If you send me a question, I will answer it. And we are going to start, I'm going to tell y'all, we're going to start doing at least a monthly episode of Tea with Dr. D. I'm excited to be back and doing this again. So if you have any questions, shoot us a message, drop it in the comments. We're collecting those. And what we'll do is run back through them and any live questions that you have, let your friends know, hey, jump on Tea with Dr. D. If you got any questions, if you want to know anything, if you want to get a cheap bit of information or recommendations, this does not constitute medical care. This is just opinions, but it is fun for us to go through some of this stuff anyway. So there's your answers. Crohn's, go back and do the full workup, look at fermented foods, omega-3s before, make sure you're not doing high sugar. And I would look at like an oral form of BPC. It'll help reduce some inflammation. Joint popping may or may not be an issue, depending on what types. Stretch more. If you need to get specific, do what feels good in what type of stretch, but make sure you're moving your body. And for all those, if you have friends or family in the aging population and they don't like working out or going to a gym, absolutely look at blood flow modification therapy. Look at KAATSU therapy. I love the technology. It's something I'll use the rest of my life in some form or fashion. It's just too accessible and too easy. So with that said, thank you for joining the show. Thanks for saying hi. And I will see y'all next time. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining, Paula.